Are you struggling with the difference between I and på in Norwegian? Don't worry, because in this video I'm going to give you a complete guide about how to use these prepositions correctly. Or maybe not. Because to be totally honest, how we use these two words, they're called prepositions in Norwegian, by the way, in grammar. How we use them in Norwegian is completely beyond any logic. Well, there is some basic logic. Let me explain. I generally means in something, like in a room or in a container or something. You would say something is in the glass, right? I glasset. På means on top of something. So, for example, på taket, yeah, on the roof. There's snow on the roof, snö på taket. Okay, that makes sense, not too difficult. But then sometimes we use I and på in situations where you're like, okay, this is just not logical. We say I stua in the living room, that makes sense. But we say på kjøkkenet in the kitchen, på rommet in the room. Okay, what's the difference between the living room and the kitchen? Doesn't make sense. It's just like that. You just have to accept that it's not logical. And it applies to other things. We would say på kino. We would say på restaurang. Also, doesn't make any sense at all. Okay? So unfortunately, you're going to have to learn the usage of på and I in the context. And that means that you just have to have heard these expressions a lot of times. Again, in context. By the way, the context is also why I always base my courses around coherent stories. You might know my Norwegian course, The Mystery of Niels. This is Niels, by the way. This is the reason why I do that, so that you hear the words in context and that you can recall them. How does it work when we use I and på as referred to place names? So we use I when it's a country. That's still quite logical. Or when it's a city. We use på when it's an island. That makes also somewhat sense because you're like on the island, right? On top, especially if you imagine a small island, yeah, okay. But we also say it about small towns and villages. And that, of course, is the question like, yeah, what is small? So we would definitely say I Oslo because, well, there is no bigger city in Norway. But we would say, for example, på Finnsnes. Yeah, Finnsnes is a small village in the north of Norway, so we would say på Finnsnes. That makes sense, but sometimes it's not so clear. And my favorite example is Mo i Rana. Mo i Rana is a town also in northern Norway. And sometimes the name is shortened to Mo. But the interesting thing is that the locals will say på Mo, but they say I Mo i Rana. So it's the same place, no difference, not one more inhabitant, but in one version they would use I, in the other version they would use på, okay? So unfortunately, this is not logical, but the good news is the difference between I and på, if you make a mistake with them, it's not a big deal. People will understand what you want to say. So therefore, don't worry about this too much. Try to imitate how Norwegians use it, but don't think about it very much. It's not logical, and just try to get used to the different versions of these prepositions like på kjøkkenet, I stua. Just try to get used to that over time. Are there other pairs of prepositions that are confusing you? Let me know in the comments.